Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, a GeneaVlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to Jeremy Clarkson visits former site of Kilner jars from Who Do You Think You Are. This is, I think, part 7 of the episode that we were watching for Jeremy Clarkson. So far, he's been researching his Kilner family, looking into the factory that they owned, the glass jar that they made, found a name for a trademark that the family had registered, that a name of someone who still owned it. And then last we saw, he was just kind of running through a cemetery looking for his ancestors. He'd already visited different sites of glass factories, but I'm guessing this will be the site where they specifically made the Kilner jar. So I imagine it'll be pretty interesting. Hopefully he'll be able to dig out some more family history in this episode. But before we jump into the video, please be sure to give this a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for notifications on future videos. And if you want to see early access to other videos, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of these Who Do You Think You Are's. So if you want to see a lot of those early, become a patron on Patreon, and you'll start to see a lot of those popping up before they actually come up on YouTube, as well as some extra content that you won't be able to get on YouTube. With all of that fun stuff said, though, let's go ahead and jump into the video.
Conisbrough was the site of the second vast Kilner factory. The town is still dotted with the decaying remains of its industrial past. The Kilner plant was demolished long ago. In its place is the environmental public attraction that Jeremy has come across before.
I'm fairly convinced that this is where the hideous Earth Centre is. That would be a cruel irony. The company that faced one of the first environmental lawsuits has now been bulldozed to make way for an Earth Centre.
The entrance to the Earth Centre is still called Kilner's Bridge.
I'm surprised the Earth Centre hasn't changed the bridge to make it out of rhubarb or something. Something that is kind to the environment. A nice, I think rhubarb and yeast. It's not the most beautiful bridge in the world. Not from here, anyway.
Watch him fall off the bridge.
Bridge to be made with that, right? It's nice to know that the family has a bridge.
Come check out my family bridge. It's near where my family's factory used to be. Although it is pretty cool. I mean, if that's the Kilner Bridge, I imagine his ancestors probably went over that bridge hundreds of times.
As with the other Kilner factories, most of the site of Conisbrough is now just weeds. But here, at least, one building does survive. This house was built in 1864 by Jeremy's great-great-grandfather, Caleb Kilner. For 25 years, Caleb lived here amongst his workers and the smoke of his grimy factory. His obituary, written in 1920, paints a picture of a hard-working, popular employer.
This is Caleb Kilner's obituary, the chap who built this house. He said he started out 2 shillings a week, worked his way up through the family firm until he was set up the Conisbrough branch here, and just worked very hard. Everybody loved him. When he died, all the blinds were drawn along the funeral route for the houses. Enormous number of people came to the funeral, including, I noticed, some Clarksons, which is interesting. But then, all this stuff is about the church. He's obviously fanatical.
In 1899, Caleb moved his family away from the factory to a bigger house, overlooking Conisbrough.
In here, Ivanhoe Lodge. Crikey.
That's
A
cool.
creeper covered. Well, he couldn't have had a Range Rover back then. He'd never have got it through here.
I think the oldest ancestral home I've been to where the home still exists, as far as I know, is my parents' houses. I mean, technically my grandparents also live there too, but it's kind of interesting now that I think about it. If I went to Amsterdam, I'm pretty sure a lot of the houses that like my, great-great-great-grandparents and their parents and so on, where they lived, a lot of those buildings may exist. but I've never really, wait, no, never mind. I'm wrong. I visited where my great grandmother grew up, which it was a building that was owned by my great great grandfather. He had a shop, and then they lived above the shop, and I have visited there. I've never been inside though, although he hasn't gone inside any of these houses, so I was wrong. But I mean, it was really cool to check that out, and I imagine this is pretty cool. You know, just being where your ancestors were and knowing they set that up.
This, I gather, is where Caleb Kilner came to live after he moved away from the.
Yeah.
So, have you traced the history of the place?
Not particularly, no.
Really?
No.
Oh, so this must be the guy that lives there.
Died in 1920.
Yeah.
Converted the house in the late 1890s, 1899.
Converted it from.
Like a cottage-like structure.
Oh wow, that is cool.
Late 1890s, 18.
Wow, a photo of him in front of the house, and then a picture of the house, and it looks pretty much the same.
Converted it from.
Like a cottage-like.
Yeah, it's like the same wooden style and everything. Wow, that's really cool. Wow.
When the current owner, Peter Skinner, moved in, he discovered a box of Caleb's old photos and documents in the attic.
No way. Oh, I hope this guy gives it to Jeremy Clarkson. Oh my God. If I went to an ancestral home and they had documents and photos that had been left by my family, I would be begging that please give me this stuff. At the very least, digitize it and give me the digital copies. At the very least. But I hope he gives it to him. That'd be the right thing to do.
This is what we've got here. This is Caleb Kilner's will.
A will, and then we get the ad.
You see how many houses they had? This is what Caleb Kilner, who's only one of them, wasn't he? I mean, this is what he left in his will. 17 houses in Castle Grove Terrace, 13 houses in Durn Street, 11 houses in Don Street, 11 houses in Ouse Street, 13 houses in Trent Terrace, 34 cottages, 2 houses and 2 shops in Burcroft, 14 houses in Calder Terrace, 12 houses in Ferry Terrace, 10 cottage villas on south side of Low Road, known as Kimberley Pardberg, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
All the above property being situated at Conisbrough in the county of York, and all his land situate at Bridlington.
When Caleb died, aged 77, his son George took over the running of the factory and moved into Ivanhoe Lodge.
So there's a mortgage. George Kilner got a
I accidentally muted it. I think they said Caleb was his second great-grandfather, so I wonder, is this George his great-grandfather? Because we do know it's his mother's mother who this is through. So I just don't know if it's like his grandmother's father or his grandmother's mother. So I guess we'll have to find out.
He has a mortgage in 1931. If he'd been left in 1920, about 500,000 houses. Deeds relating to 1854 square yards of freehold land with house and other buildings known as Ivanhoe Lodge. He took out a mortgage on this place 11 years after his father died. Did he have a coke habit? So in 11 years he got through the lot. So we've narrowed down a culprit at least, haven't we? George blew my money.
George's 1940 obituary paints a picture of a retiring soul.
But is that his great-grandfather or is his second
Took no part
great-grandfather?
in community life and liked nothing more than to sit by the fire with a good book. Hardly qualities that make a captain of industry. Under George's management, the firm floundered, and his father's fortune dwindled as he struggled to keep the company afloat. Jeremy may have found a culprit, but he still needs to know where George went wrong. One Yorkshire glass company from the Kilner's time has lasted to the present day. If Jeremy can find out how they survived, it might help explain why the Kilners didn't.
Hello? Hi, Jeremy Clarkson.
John Clark's family have been manufacturing bottles in Yorkshire for more than 150 years.
Kilners were not alone. I mean, there are a number of firms that did go under. In the 1930s, there were 400 glassmakers in this area. And today there are 3/4. They were caught by, well, it's hard to say selecting the wrong machine for them, but as things turned out, probably they selected the wrong machine.
The Kilners may have splashed out on an Owens machine, but it was soon made obsolete by the arrival of bigger and faster machines in the 1920s. Not only was the new equipment expensive, but it needed vast factories to operate efficiently, not the numerous small buildings of an old bottle works.
So they would have needed to have pulled both their works down and then build new buildings just to put the machines in.
Big money. I mean, it's enough just to invest in the machinery. Never mind having to build a building as well.
In the new world of modern mass production, a family firm like the Kilners simply lacked the resources to stay in the game. Other glass companies merged to form conglomerates, big enough to tear down their old factories and start again.
You just look at that photograph of George Kilner and know he wasn't going to be the sort of man who was going to start again.
George struggled on until 1937. Then, after 4 generations and 93 years, Kilner Glass closed its doors for the last time. But for the Kilner jar, the story was far from over. The trademark was bought by one of the new conglomerates, and production continued, reaching its peak during the Second World War and becoming a kitchen icon.
Before I go back to the south again, I do want to know what this man in Cheshire is doing with my patent, well, my trademark. What is historically and rightfully mine? Why has he got it? What's he going to do with it? And will he give it to me, or will I have to punch him to get it out?
That would be quite an ending, him punching some guy. Another interesting episode, kind of like I thought in one of the previous episodes, the company did go under, which makes sense, why he wouldn't have it. It will be interesting to see what this other guy says, and maybe he will learn a bit more about the history. I thought this episode was really cool, though, in terms of going and seeing the sites, visiting the houses, and then getting to meet that guy who found documents from his family, from the Kilner family in the house. I wonder if he gave them to Jeremy Clarkson. I assume maybe not, because Jeremy Clarkson didn't leave with them. Then the other question is, was that guy some sort of a relative or not? Although I'm guessing probably not, because maybe he would have mentioned, oh, well, I'm a Kilner too. That's how I got this. Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give a thumbs up. Really does help me out. You can also click right about here if you'd like to subscribe. It is completely free to do so. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger. See you in my next video.